He said, I tried to watch Trump's 6:30 p.m. news conference on two different MSM news channels, and both interrupted his speech halfway through to say he was lying. They wouldn't allow people to hear what he had to say. So I found the entire press conference on C-SPAN.
Oh my
Trump
God.
is doing everything right. First the courts, all the way to the Supreme Court. And if that doesn't work, he's made a rock solid case to enact he says 17th Amendment, but I think he means the 14th. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is there's a lot of people out there saying, what's wrong with Trump? Why doesn't he concede? Why doesn't he just give in? He's he's un-American. He's trying to become a tyrant. And the bottom line is if somebody is illegally trying to steal an election, I would say that is a version of treason.
Treason and sedition, or treason.
And what they call it is insurrection against our republic. Basically, you're breaking the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they've been broken before, because here's the funny thing is, I know the United States likes to think of itself as the greatest nation in the world, but we can't even hold an election. We use like 15th century voting techniques and wonder how it's not being pulled off in a timely or efficient or accurate manner. We can spend $2 million on a cruise missile,
right?
But we can't spend the money on technology to make sure that our voting is handled correctly.
It's true. It's true. We can nail you anywhere in the world with a pinpoint accurate weapon, but we can't cast a ballot.
Yep.
You know, and the 2000 election showed that too. If you remember, Florida and Ohio, off the top of my head, remember the CHAP stuff there?
The Chad.
You know,
the
Chad or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Hanging Chads.
Yeah.
Okay. Save the Republic. Trump may invoke the 14th Amendment to strip the Electoral College votes from states engaged in an illegal insurrection against our republic. I'll leave the link for this. This is the writer speaking, and the writer is Mike Adams. 2 months ago, I detailed Trump's powers under the 14th Amendment, which grants the president the power to declare an illegal insurrection against the United States of America and strip Electoral College votes from states which are engaged in a coordinated insurrection. The blatant brazen vote stuffing fraud now taking place in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania and other states reveals a pattern of criminal insurrection taking place via organized vote fraud. This is a form of criminal insurrection against the United States of America. Now, I was thinking about this, whether you're a Trump supporter or you're not a Trump supporter, hopefully you support the Constitution of the United States and what this country stands for, or what we think it stands for. And if you believe in fair elections and all of a sudden 100,000 votes show up and all 100,000 go for one candidate, I think that, you know, unless you're completely out to lunch, you have to think, okay, there's something fishy here.
Yeah. Common sense. And then if you want to even be more empirical, what are the odds or probability that if 100,000, like you said, so-called votes come in, they're all just for the one candidate? Really? What's the probability of that? Probably pretty small, to zero.
Well, Jim Willey has a doctorate in statistics, and I asked him that question earlier today. I said, Jim, what are the percentages that could happen? And he said, 0%. And I said, what about in Pennsylvania? They're reporting that 19 out of 20 of the mail-in ballots are going for Biden. What are the chances of that? And he said, in a large enough sample size, 0. It's like being at a casino and seeing the roulette wheel go red like 50 times in a row. You know something's wrong, because statistically, it's just not possible. I mean, is it possible that all 100,000 people said Trump's got to go? No. I mean, no. I mean, for 100,000, no. If you talk 20, then yeah. If you got 20, if you pulled 20 out of that batch, you might find 20 that all of them would go with the same vote.
No, absolutely, yeah. But if, to your point, if the sample size, even common sense wise, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you go from 20 ballots to 100 ballots to 1,000 to 5,000, 10,000, etc. I think it's an inverse relationship in terms of the odds of it all going for one candidate as the sampling size gets bigger. It's
especially if you factor in that what do elections typically win by? 55 to 45, 51 to 49. those are typically the elections.
Pretty
So
close.
we're not talking 90-10 or 95-5. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think that it's Trump's constitutional duty to resist this fraud, or at least have it inspected to make sure that it's like anything. If there was an accident.
Yeah, look, the bottom line is, to your point, Dave, and for anybody, whatever, looking in on this, if things are truly above board, then what are you worrying about? So, for example, supposedly with certain election places, like in Pennsylvania, for example, Detroit, Philadelphia in particular, and Detroit, they supposedly, when the Trump administration wanted observers to go in there and watch the ballot counting,
They were turned away.
They were turned away or told, yeah, you can observe from 80 to 100 feet away.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's effective. I'm 100 feet away. So then when some of these people were like 100 feet away, they pulled out binoculars, literally, is what I heard. And then, of course, to thwart that, the guys, running the counting got cute and took cardboard and paper, put it up on the windows. So much for the binocs. So bottom line is, you don't have to be a genius, okay? If everything is truly above board, then why are people got to be 80 feet away? And then why are you covering the windows? Real simple. If it's so above board, right? Is it supposed to be top secret? Is that our election process now? It's supposed to be classified as top secret?
Where's the chain of command? Right? Where's the chain of command?
That too.
See, the problem is if you put control into a few people's hands, and those few people are bought,
bias, yeah,
or they believe that they're doing their duty to get out this tyrant, whatever their rationale is, it's not legal. There are legal means to get rid of a politician. Term limits would be nice, and there is a term limit on president, but they could have defeated him in the election the valid way by going out and campaigning and convincing people to throw this guy out.
Yeah.
But I think it is very damning as well that, the problem with having these elections go to the next day is now the Democrats see they need 103,000 votes to
exactly.
And now all of a sudden they just happen to find 108,000 votes, all for Biden. What are the chances? Talk about a Hail Mary.
Well, apparently nobody exercises common sense, right? I mean, let's exercise common sense. And if you want to go to the next degree, let's bring in a bunch of statistical professors and do the math, crunch the math. What are the odds? I guarantee both will come up the same.
0.
Yeah, 0. Goose eggs.
Okay, so this guy goes, the 14th Amendment speaks directly to the powers of the federal government in dealing with officials, individuals, and states that are engaged in rebellion against the United States of America. Specifically, the 14th Amendment grants the U.S. president the power to arrest and indefinitely hold all public officials, including mayors, governors, state legislature, federal judges, and law enforcement officials who support rebellion against the United States, who have given aid or comfort to the enemies of America, Section 3. So Section 3 says, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. But the bottom line is, Dan, we were talking about how the Civil War really wasn't a civil war because the states back in 1860, they were trying to secede. They weren't trying to take over Washington.
They were just trying to walk out.
They were just trying to say, okay, you guys go your way, we're going to go our way. And as far as I know, there's no provision in the Constitution for being able to leave. There's a provision for how to join, but like you said, Dan, it's like the mafia or the Hotel California. You can check out anytime, but you can never leave.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds funny, but if you're in the thick of it, it's not too funny.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so what is, so for these people who are, let's face it, Dan, there obviously seems to be a huge divide in this country of how the United States should be and how it should behave and perform. And the problem is what are these two camps going to do? Because nowadays, you know, what is the recourse for people today? Because, you know, the federal government is so strong today, state powers are very weak. So you could be in California or Hawaii or New York or Massachusetts or New Hampshire or Texas. And can you set up your state to be different from the other states today? Let's say you did not want abortion, or let's say you did not want gay rights, or let's say you did want to be able to marry your dog, right? I mean, those are state issues. Those are not federal government issues.
They are, but I do feel like more and more that at the federal level, they're exerting it's exerting its influence in such a way across all the states, almost to make them all vanilla-like or ubiquitous-like.
Well,
right?
that's what's happened. That's what that, as a result of the Civil War, the War of the States, I should say, the War of the States, basically, that war created a very strong federal government. And what has happened as a result is now the reason the United States worked is because you had all these people who were very different, who decided to come together and unify for very limited purposes, right? When they agreed to come together for very few reasons, that allowed the states to be different. You would cross state lines and you would almost be entering like another country in some ways.
Not the case anymore, though, right? I mean, everything's been homogenized, ubiquitous from coast to coast, strip malls, the same corporate whatever, sandwich shops, everything, right?
Well,
Even at that,
we're a country of cowards now.
Even at that level,
we're a country of cowards. So immediately people would be like thinking the worst thing. They'd be like, well, you can't have states deciding that they can be different from another state. What if I want to, do this or do that? Well, don't live in that state.
don't live in that state.
Or start a campaign to change the law in that state. What happens is I think like libertarians, they tend to be like, okay, well, this is how I choose to live. You choose to live your way. But it doesn't seem to go both ways, right? There are certain groups that believe that you must live their way.
Where we are slowly losing our rights over time. There's no doubt about it. I mean, how can you not see it?
So it would not surprise me that, especially with such an archaic system as our voting is,
agreed,
that if you are in a position of authority, oaths to the Constitution don't mean much to a lot of people these days.
No, it doesn't. It should be like the Bible, but that would be laughed at as well. It is our Bible, folks. The United States Constitution, aside from the Bible itself, is the Bible, so to speak, figuratively speaking, whatever, in my view.
The land.
Yeah, it's the gospel word of the United States. It is what everything the U.S. was, at least at one point, predicated on. That was your bulwark, the ultimate foundation of which to build from, right? And if you're building a house, we've all heard the saying before, you got a choice. Do you want to build on solid ledge or rock, or do you want to build on sand?
Well, and that's why we started reading the Constitution, because I suspect that most people really do not know the Constitution or understand the Constitution. Because the government would not be allowed to get away with what it gets away with today. because a lot of what we have today is not constitutional.
Mhm.
Well, all these
Yeah.
agencies and the power in the federal government, these are not allowed by the Constitution. They basically are creating these things. But I don't want to go down this path because all we're trying to talk about is the election tonight.
Right.
So basically, this article continues by saying Trump can enact, he has powers to basically strip states of their electoral college votes. He
Wow.
basically can say, hey, California, hey, Arizona, hey, Michigan, hey, North Carolina,
Hmm.
you have committed insurrection against this country. In essence, kind of like how felons are not allowed to vote. They would now, by violating their oath to the Constitution, that is, in essence, they have voided their right to vote. They avoided their ability to partake in the voting process, and all of their votes and their would be thus voided.
Null and void.
I will be the first one to admit I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
Or a critic would go after, what's his background? What does he know? Likewise, you and I even talking about it, the way we would be challenged, because I've been challenged this way before by certain people in certain areas of power, if you will. Well, what's your background? Are you a lawyer? Are you a constitutional expert? No, I'm not. But I am a United States citizen,
Well,
and I
guess
do
what?
have the right, the last
Well,
time I checked,
well,
to
guess
read the
what?
Constitution.
Well, guess what? The people who actually used to go and serve in the Congress and in the Senate, they weren't constitutional lawyers. They were farmers. They were bankers. They
For the
were
longest time, yeah.
okay. They weren't lawyers. We could
Yeah.
go down this path about how lawyers have really screwed up this country, because the law, you don't need to be a lawyer to interpret what is common sense. And if you write a law that isn't in plain English that normal people can understand, then maybe it's not the best written law.
Well,
Okay?
you know, for the last 50, probably 40 plus years anyway, the way a lot of laws are written now and bills are passed, they're about 6 inches thick, and they're usually passed at like 2 in the morning. And most of the Congress has not even read them.
Yeah,
They
and
might have
usually they're usually what the
pork barrel
title is for
stuff.
the law is not even the real law. They'll put something in the back page,
Yeah.
and all this pork on it to get
Yeah.
it passed. All right, Dan, I'll give you my vote if you build that bridge to nowhere for me. So, they're doing a bill on, school funding or whatever. And then the back, it's like a bridge to Dan's house.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, it's a joke, dude. And the bottom line is,
So,
like what he's saying here, big tech censorship platforms.
well, it's at what point are people just, I mean, so where I was going down. So now you have this division of
Mhm.
two sides that are just relying on visceral reactions now,
I agree.
where they're going to become, okay, it's almost like that guy in the cage match. Let's get it on, right?
Right.
At some
Instead of
point,
right.
it comes back to Thomas Jefferson with the Tree of Liberty, where every so often you have to water the Tree of Liberty with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
Well, I hear you, but
No, I'm quoting. I'm not making this up.
I know you're not quoting it. I get it, but that's pretty heavy for a lot of people to swallow.
Well, it really isn't, because the bottom line is we talked about evil in when we read Revelations, and how the Bible warned that evil will continually come for you. It will keep coming. It will keep coming. Even in Revelation, it cast evil down, right? But evil comes back.
Yeah.
Evil will never stop. It doesn't tire. It doesn't feel remorse. It's just it's like the Terminator. It's going to just keep coming from you unless you kill it.
Yeah.
So, and the bottom line is if our country has reached the point where we have a division of where people want this country to go, then perhaps it is time that we split apart.
Well, it's funny you say that because certain people, I can name one guy right now, you know who he is, but Doug Casey's been saying that for a long time, that he sees that coming for so many reasons, a split. And that
Well,
logic,
well, think about it. Really, the only thing that the federal government should be doing for us is protecting us. That's it. That's their only duty.
pretty much. I mean, to raise enough money to, I guess, support,
No,
a
their
military.
job is not to raise money. They're not,
Well,
because raising money means they're stealing money.
well, not literally raise money,
The
but
government is supposed to be limited.
agreed. But they have to. Let's face it. I mean, defense is definitely part of it. But I thought it was, you know, infrastructure maybe to an extent as well, right? So that we could do our daily lives and engage in commerce, stuff like that, right?
That's not the job of government.
Okay. It's the job of the
Because
states
because
then
now
to do that.
now you're deciding, well, what is, so now let's say they decide that they're going to put in boat canals. What
Mhm.
the hell is the point of a boat canal? So now they're putting in infrastructure that probably isn't even relevant. You notice how states, they're always like 10 years behind. Like they're putting in an expansion of the highway in New Hampshire. Well,
Mhm.
they're going from 2 lanes to 3 lanes.
Mhm.
Well, if they were really forward thinking, they would have put in a high-speed train line, right? They would put in all these things that mattered. If
And maybe, yeah, maybe
and
would
they
have.
would have been funded by private funding, not from government funding.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, yeah, I mean, look, we're at a point where everybody thinks the government should be doing everything all the time. Most people think
You
that
just
way.
brought it up. Well, why aren't we getting this? Where's the government? Well, if it really is needed.
What does the Constitution specifically say what they should be doing? I know the defense, to
I don't
provide
want,
for the common
we can
defense.
do that another day. We're not going to
No,
do
no, no,
that.
I understand. I don't mean to go into it and dig into it now, but
Go
common
back and
defense,
watch the videos that we already did, because we
the
already touched
common,
on that.
yeah, the common defense is definitely of the major thing. I mean, we're on the same page that the government in general is way too big. Isn't it the biggest employer now? Or one of the biggest?
What?
It's the biggest employer, if not one of the biggest employers.
Yeah, I wonder how many of their jobs have actually been lost this year.
I would say very little.
Yep.
Maybe none, if I had to guess. But if you look at the private sector,
I would argue that their ranks have probably grown. You told me FEMA was hiring in your area.
yep, that's a good point. They probably have grown.
Like
Because
TSA agents. I wonder
we
if they
need
laid
them.
off any of these TSA agents, even though airport traffic is down.
Great question.
So,
Great question.
But listen, we're going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the point. So this article. So I really believe that we're at a critical juncture here where this could fracture the country. This could fracture the country. This could lead to a civil
I hope
war.
not.
This could lead to a real civil war. Because,
I wish.
well, think about it. What is your recourse? Now they're going to be like, okay, so now we have this tyrant just picking and choosing articles of the Constitution to get reelected, right? That's what they're going to say.
Well, you know the irony about that statement? Here's this tyrant. Here's the irony. If he was a tyrant, would he even refer to the Constitution? I argue no. The fact that he's trying to refer to the Constitution means he's trying to do the right thing. You could spin it that way too. He's trying to utilize
the Book of Rules,
the bedrock, right? What does the bedrock say, guys? What does the Constitution, the bulwark, foundation, etc. of the country say? If he was truly a tyrant, like they're saying, he'd be like this. Oh, I don't need the Constitution. We don't need that. We just need to do what I think and say. That's what a tyrant says or dictator.
Yeah, he'd roll out the tanks.
Yeah,
He'd
exactly.
roll out the tanks. He'd shut everything down. Martial law.
Yeah. So So that's my point. That's proof right there, at least in my simple mind, that he's not a tyrant. The fact that he's even referring to the Constitution and trying to steer us back to how it used to be. Now, some people, when I said how it used to be, would even challenge that phrase, how it used to be. We're beyond that. We're progressive. We're in the 21st century. What you're suggesting, Dan, is antiquated. Oh, really? So the Constitution is antiquated, is what you're saying? Yes, it is. We don't need the Second Amendment, for example. What do we need that for? You know how many times I've gotten that comment from certain people?
Well, I told you years ago, and I'll say it again now. I really believe that when you're facing evil, and I think that I think we truly are facing evil, is that you have to kill it and you have to really squash it. And I think the biggest mistake Trump made, now maybe Trump made a deal with Hillary the night of the election saying, Hillary, if you concede, I won't prosecute you. And maybe that's the real reason why he never went after her. But other than that deal, potential deal, that is, he should have been coming after her. He made a promise to drain the swamp. That is why I voted for him the first time, is because I believe that we are a swamp. All right. You go to Washington, D.C., look at how much money is poured into Washington, D.C. It used to be a swamp, and it's still a swamp today.
Well, I mean, you know,
And
you
so-
go there. Yeah.
I
All the
just wanna-
lobbyists. Yeah. All the houses, everybody that lives around there, you know, all the big contractors, particularly the government contractors, the military contractors, you name it. They're all embedded. They all literally live there, camp out there all year round, doing their stuff, sucking billions out of the system. Right? I don't want to sound like a pacifist, but you know, why do you think we fight wars continuously? Is that normal? Is that normal? That's the norm now. We fight wars continuously. We're constantly fighting, for example. We never stop.
Yeah, and you notice they never give him, you know, they actually attack him for going to North Korea and making peace with.
Yeah, they attack him for trying to, you know, at least keep the lines of communication open. They attack him for talking to Putin, having a decent relationship with the North Korean guy as well. I mean, you know, yeah, I don't love North Korea either. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with their philosophy and their mindset and everything else. But isn't that better than constantly being at each other's throat and on the 38th parallel with still 40,000 soldiers there 60 years, 70 years later, needing to ramp it up to 200,000 if the stuff hits the fan, with Seoul, Korea only 60 miles south or whatever? The powers that be, we got to create a boogeyman every 5 minutes. The basic rule of thumb is there's 8 to 10 support troops. So that's a lot of money to clothe, feed, equipment, gasoline, you name it, logistics, communications, blah, 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 on and on and on.
Yeah, that we're paying.
Yeah.
I mean, we're paying to keep our troops in somebody else's country.
Yeah. 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 I mean, we've got troops in what, over half the countries in the world, right?
Well,
Bases.
we have several bases in Korea, several bases in Japan.
Yeah. There's about 200 countries in the world at any given time. We're probably in half of them at least. I mean, has that ever happened in the history of the world and mankind where one nation has had troops in over half the other nations in the world?
Yeah, the United Kingdom, England.
Oh, that's right.
England.
Yeah, the sun shall never set. But yeah, the British, yeah, well, okay, I guess we followed their model, right?
We absolutely did.
So when the great lion and the sterling pound bowed and we strolled in and took over because everybody else was decimated, I guess we adopted that model. I don't know.
Well, but the bottom line is, going back to this article. So basically, you can read it. It's on the screen there for everybody here. But basically, it says that depending how you interpret the Constitution, the president has the ability to strip these states and cities of funding, of the ability of basically their right to participate in
Yeah.
this election.
Mhm.
So he won't need 270 ballots and electoral votes anymore. Now, I don't think anybody can argue that the mainstream media is completely biased. Okay, it's all scripted. You don't get real news.
Mhm.
And perhaps it is controlled by just a few people. And big tech, I mean, the bottom line is you can argue that these companies have the right to kick people off the platform because they're private companies.
Oh yeah, yeah. Terms and conditions, right? When you join the platform, most people don't read the terms and conditions. God knows what the terms and conditions say.
But when you're talking about Twitter, Twitter almost could be considered a utility now because people use that. There are millions of Americans who rely on Twitter as their source of news. That's where they go for their news. They don't go to
Good
the New
point.
York Times. They don't go to CNN. They don't go to Fox. They go to Twitter because that's what they do is they have dozens or hundreds of people that they follow. That's how they accumulate their news from those various sources.
Good
So
point.
you could have conservative, you could have liberal, you could have moderate sources on Twitter. And if you start hearing the same story coming from various people, then it's probably actually a better source of news than any major network.
These days, there could be truth to that, right?
And it's instant. It's instant.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I definitely see the bottom line is here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you, this is like being where you're either a man or you're not. And I'm not trying to belittle women, but I'm just saying, you know, if you have somebody do outwardly wrong to you, or if you see, like you're walking by and you see somebody
An
getting mugged,
injustice.
you
An
see somebody
injustice.
getting mugged, are you going to continue
Yeah.
to walk by? Dan, come on, man. What can you at least try?
I am sorry. Yeah, to your point, when you see an injustice taking place, right? Can you live with yourself to just kind of walk by and ignore it? That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
And can you look
granted,
at yourself in the mirror the next day?
even if we didn't vote for Donald Trump, I still don't want to see an election that is fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to see, you know, I grew up believing a lot of the things that I was indoctrinated to believe. And we don't need to go down this rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, I still believe that we should stand for doing the right thing. And
Well,
if doing the right thing gets Biden elected or Trump elected, it really doesn't matter. It's doing the right thing that matters.
yes, it is because we used to be regarded as a nation of, law, rules, principles, right?
Yeah, well, you're going back to Yuri Brezhnev there, where people aren't going to wake up until they get a boot to their balls. And the problem is
Yeah.
people have been so apathetic in this country for decades that this is where it's come to. Now, I mean, we don't need to go back and talk about 9/11 because that will definitely go down a different rabbit hole. But the whole point is, at what point are you going to care about what happens or doesn't happen? I mean, are we so self-centered today that we don't give a shit about any of this?
Yeah, we are as a whole. We absolutely are. Yeah, it's all everything is about.
My 401k is up 500% in the last 3 days.
All
Get out
everything
of
is
there.
yeah.
That's all I care about.
Yep. All everything is about anymore, and it's been this way for 2 decades at least, is money. And we prove that, through our actions. We say with our lips that we're for principles, we're for family. Family is important. Family's not important to us.
Absolutely not.
It's not important at all. That's a bunch of bullshit. How's it important to us? The corporations and the big companies, they don't give a shit about family. Look how they operate. Look how the American family's been decimated. Look at the divorce rate.
Their definition of family, not yours.
Yeah. Their definition of family is an indentured servant that'll work for as least as possible to boost their profits as much as possible. That is the bottom line. That's the truth. And nobody has the balls to say it in terms of our leaders.
I don't hate Trump, but there's a lot about him that I'm not particularly fond of.
He's an imperfect human being like we all are.
But I think what is going wrong is it's so obvious that this is fraud that it's almost like we could talk about the Federal Reserve, the stock market. There are so many frauds in our country today. Let's stand up for something, people. I mean, are we going to continue to roll over? And that's why I think that this could lead to a civil war, because you're going to have people where they're like, okay, all right.
Enough's enough.
They sent my jobs away. There's no more education. They now have forced me. They've taken away my savings. I can't save anymore. It's 0%. So I've got to put my money into the stock market and get shellacked by these professional banksters.
Exactly.
And now,
you nailed it.
Now you're saying that my vote means nothing?
Yeah. Well, it means nothing because you're now worth nothing. You're not educated. You don't have two nickels to rub together. So why would I entrust your vote, Dave?
Yeah, just go take your opioids and die.
Yeah. No, just sit in your house all day, shut your friggin' mouth, take your UBI, take your universal basic income. I'll give you just barely enough to subsist because you can't do anything else except subsist. Sit in your house all day, look at the big flat screen TV and watch friggin' Jerry Springer all day.
And the NFL.
In zone out. In the NFL with the fake crowd in the background.
There we go. Don't get me started on. I refuse to. There's another one. I have not heard anybody else mention. I have not heard anybody bring this up.
Nope.
And if you want to talk, like, think about this, folks. Think about this. If they have to pump in crowd noise and you're looking at the stadium and there's no crowd, why would you believe anything from that organization? It's a complete fraud. It's a complete manufactured product. For all you know, it's scripted. Okay, Tom Brady, you're going to throw a pick six and then you're going to miraculously make a comeback with 2 minutes left, right?
It's possible. It's possible. It's absolutely, in today's world with the technology and with a radio in his helmet, absolutely. To your point, Dave, they've been doing it for years in professional wrestling, the WWE and WWF. They're tremendous athletes, no doubt about it. They're jacked. When you're 270 pounds pure muscle and you can jump around like a gymnast, I mean, you're obviously athletic, but we all know it's scripted. So if they can script wrestling, why can't they script football? Why can't they script other sports?
I haven't heard anybody say that they refuse to watch these games because if the NFL is going to pump in this noise, to me, it's offensive. Why do we need crowds? We have crowd noise.
Exactly. It's farcical. It's farcical. Something else.
Accept that as acceptable.
Exactly.
Dave, why do we need to have an election? At this point, we're not going to have elections anymore, guys, because
it's
now they can just put in any vote. Okay, we need 110,000 to get the win. Hey, guess what? I've got 110,000 votes. Next.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe that's the real reason why technology has not been used to enhance the voting process, because it would make it actually then difficult to steal.
100%.
Although some people would argue that it makes it easier to steal because now somebody can hack it.
Yes and no. It depends what sort of encryption you choose to use.
Can Bitcoin be hacked?
My understanding is can be hacked, but there's other cryptos, the way they were built, closed, the protocol and the security schemes around them, like Monero is a great example. Monero, you can't tell just the way they built it from the get-go, right? They didn't build Bitcoin that way.
The point is we have some of the brightest quote on people in the world.
Yes.
And I'm sure that if it was an objective, we could create something that was somehow more reliable than what we have. And you'd get instant results.
Look, we're supposed to be the world leaders and the technological innovators and everything else, but we're still doing, and I'm sorry for the F-bomb, fucking elections with, number 2 pencils when I was in 3rd grade. and I'm over 50 years old. So that's a long time ago.
But I used a Sharpie.
I mean, really?
Yeah, and if you're
21st
not
century.
and if you're not inside those lines, it disconnects. It discounts your vote.
Yeah, I can send a bomb up your ass, Dave, from Colorado, but I can't help you with the ballot box.
If this is broken, I
God
mean,
help us.
a civil war might be the only solution.
All right, Dave, I hate when you get into that crap. I really don't want to see that as a solution. I really don't. Honestly,
what did I
don't.
say? I didn't say I'm calling for it. I said that may be the only solution.
I didn't say you were calling for it, but just to even, I hope that's not the only solution or last option. I really don't. Obviously not. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see people. But to your point, what does disturb me, and it's highly disturbing.
Evil. So you're saying that we have some real evil in this country. So you're saying it's not acceptable to kill evil? They're not playing by the rules. They're not playing by the rules.
No. If you're going to back me in a corner and give me no other recourse, absolutely, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. If something is truly wrong and truly evil, I guess we could debate that. But
everybody talks about the greatest generation. They fought like the last good war, right? Well, what did they fight? They fought tyranny. Well, if you have somebody trying to steal an election like that, that's tyranny.
Yeah, agreed. And and you can argue that
that's fighting. That's enough for fighting for me.
You could argue, to your point, where are the patriots at that point? Patriots have to come out. They got to stand up.
Well, this is the thing that I really disagree with. When you hear people say, well, there's a lot going on behind the scenes and they're not going to tell the public because it's for the good of the nation or it's for the survival of the republic, right?
What a bunch of bull.
Because we could go back to Smedley Butler and how that whole thing was glossed over and how most people are asleep to what happened back then. I don't want that to happen again. Everything should be out in the limelight. Everything should be out in the spotlight where everything is public information.
Well, to your point, you remember the governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura? You remember him?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. He wrote a few articles and books, and he wrote one particular book about the most 60 disturbing documents. But his major thesis of the book was, why is it everything's top secret now? Basically, like every document now that the federal government's doing, everything's top secret. If everything is top secret, then what is truly secret anymore?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Reality, in our country, nothing should be top secret.
That was his premise, and this was a guy that
with the JFK assassination, how they just basically pushed it out another 50 years.
I think it was 75 years they sealed it, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. They sealed it for 75 years. 75 years from now, that'll put it at 100 plus years, 125 plus years. Everybody will be long gone. Those 2 or 3, 4 generations down the road, when that thing's allowed to be opened, if they do open it, then what's your recourse? What are you going to do then? Everybody's long gone. Who are you going to prosecute?
Well, let's say that it led to like wealth creation or power creation that was illegally gained. Do you now take it away from those generations who got it illegally?
That is a fantastic point.
Taking possession of stolen property.
That's a fantastic point. Some of that's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. And then how are they going to deal with it down the road? What's their recourse? Talk about dropping a bag of shit on somebody 50, 60, 70 years down the road.
Well, that's all our country does now is kick the can down the road.
100%.
Do we deal with it? Do we actually deal with anything today other than bombing people? Do we actually solve any problems today? Do we actually say, wow, this is a real serious issue. Let's actually work on this and resolve it?
No, we don't. And I'll tell you why. And I'm saying this as a father and a parent. Okay. This is why I'm kind of pissed off a lot, because we've already saddled them with $2 trillion in college debt. We've saddled them with 0% interest rates. We've saddled them with MMT. indefinite, in perpetuity, quantitative easing, whatever the hell you want to call it, fiat currency that does this over time. I mean, what have we left them with? You've got deficits at 135 or 125% of GDP, right? We're 27 trillion and counting, but that doesn't count unfunded liabilities, which puts you up at 150 trillion. None of that will ever be paid off. It can't be paid off. And they know this. So what are we saddling future generations with? Does anybody think of this? The politicians tell us they think of this. They tell us they think of this stuff, but their actions prove otherwise. Geez, Dan, you're getting kind of pissed off and upset. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I wonder why.
They're only there to pad their pockets.
Okay.
That's it.
So if anybody is a parent, okay, that has any conscience whatsoever, why wouldn't you be annoyed? You and I will be long gone, but my kids, their kids, boom, boom, boom. That's what they're going to be dealing with. Right in the mouth, right in the nose.
They only use do it for the children to pass laws and regulations. That's it.
Right.
They scare you into doing things you don't want to do. Do it for the children. Well, real freedom, folks, is scary stuff. Real freedom means you could get hurt. Because that's what it is. Freedom is the unknown. And it means you're
responsible.
Freedom is the unknown.
Yeah. No, it is. I guess, communism and whatever else is not the unknown. I don't know.
It's really bad for everybody.
I guess. I mean, I guess there's tenets of capitalism you can attack, and you could probably.
Well, we're not capitalist. We're not a capitalist society.
Well, supposedly we are, but
we aren't. We're more communist than the Soviet Union at this point. Everything is controlled and regulated now.
Try explaining that to your average football fan. Good luck. I'm not disagreeing with you, dude. I'm just saying.
Do you think they care?
No, they don't, because they got their Cheetos and they're watching, their team on Sunday. I guess I sound overly facetious and pompous, but so be it.
Okay, so Dan, you don't think it's possible that a civil war is how this is going to devolve into, huh?
No, I didn't say it's not possible. That's why I'm scared, because I know America and I know Americans. Okay.
You put them in a corner, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know our history. Okay. We have a history of when we reach a certain point, then the gloves come off and the shit hits the fan. And that's what scares me. We're kind of a violent breed. As much as I love America, we're a violent breed. I mean, we've proven it. I mean, look at the sports we watch. I mean, look at how brutal football is. Look at the UFC. It's basically gladiatorial, if that's a word. You got two gladiators in the ring. It's not even Queensberry rules. I mean, anything goes. Oh, except, okay, you can't gouge the eyes. I get it. And you can't do a fish hook, and you can't kick them in the nuts. But other than that, you could basically do everything.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
Well, my point is, without getting into the details, that that's what we like. We like violence. Is it any wonder we got the best military in the world and we kick the shit out of people? And I'm not knocking our military, but I'm just saying.
Listen, it's the way our country always was. We were always killing somebody. If you're an Indian or a Mexican or French or English or Russian, or if you're in the way, I mean, Monroe passed the Monroe Doctrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
We own all of this. If you come in and try to take it, we will kill you.
Yeah, we will kick your ass, and you won't even know what happened.
Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Oh yeah,
Talk softly, carry a big stick.
Well, he kicked shit out of everybody. If you looked at him the wrong way, he was going to kick your ass, right?
Yep. He was out in the Dakotas, and somebody stole. I don't know what they stole, his boat or his horse stole it, and he hunted them down. He got a posse together. He hunted these people down and hung them.
Really? without a trial or anything.
Well, that they didn't have trials back then. If they caught you red-handed, they hung you right there on the tree.
Jesus.
That's what. Well, that's what was American justice. Those
Yeah.
people were tough, man.
No doubt about it.
People today would be horrified by what happened hundreds of years ago in this country.
Not even hundreds of years ago. It was a little over 100 years ago. You're talking Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
It was only a little over 100 years ago, if that. Not even.
Yeah,
That's
he was
not that long ago.
He was president like 1905, something like that. Maybe there should be an amendment added to the Constitution that allows states to secede. What do you think? Well, then there's an out.
Okay. What you're advocating is sort of scary, but at the same time, the flip side of that is, should you even need a clause for that, right?
Doesn't every good contract have an out option?
There is a breach of duties clause in most contracts. You know, if you didn't deliver and you breach of duties, you know, they're essentially, there could be a penalty depending on what you negotiated.
Voids the contract.
So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that there's no place at all in the Constitution at large between the body of it and the amendments for that. And as the South proved 160 years ago, I guess there isn't. I guess that implies that you don't have the right to walk away.
Well, it's kind of like owning a home and finding out you really don't own it, right? The government owns your land. The government owns everything.
They truly do. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to diatribe into that, but people think they own their house and the plot of land they sit on. Well, you really don't. Well, what are you talking about, Dan? Don't pay your property taxes for 3 months, 6 months. They'll let you know who owns it when they slap about 17 liens on you and the sheriff shows up with a new lock to the front door. What? Yeah.
You're changing your locks.
Yeah. And he shows up literally and changes the locks on your front door. And you've got, if you're lucky, 20 minutes to get out of the house if it gets that bad.
Then you lose it.
Literally. Yeah. Literally 20 minutes.
Take what you can, because that's all. That's literally. They're not allowing you to bring a U-Haul.
Well, isn't that amazing when you think about it? The banksters already set it up for 30-year mortgage, which means pay for life in Latin. You think the bankers chose that by, ad hoc at random? No, that was thought about cerebrally. Oh, let's use this cute word, but he's going to pay us for 30 years. That's all he needs to know.
General Schoen talks about this. How many, like that house you're in right now, how many times have the bankers had a 30-year or 20-year mortgage on that house you're in right now?
In 45 years? In 45 years? Probably a half dozen times minimum.
So that means they've think about how much interest that they have gotten from that house that you're in. It's
150 years of interest. Yeah. Over a 45-year period, about 150 years of interest. What a racket. Cha-ching!
Bankers never lose. Banksters never lose.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
And that is the real owner of this country.
Well, and that's why financial education, as Robert Kiyosaki says, is massively lacking. Keep them in the closet like mushrooms.
George talks about that.
Yeah.
The government doesn't want a well-informed citizen.
Well, if you're well-informed, then you can debate me and you can pose a threat because you're informed.
You know you're getting screwed. The fact that Trump is actually bringing this to people's attention, and how many people are going to say, what's the big deal, man?
Well, yeah, you know what I'm afraid is going to happen? I think the bulk of the people, especially people in my family, they're going to say, oh, he's a sore loser and a crybaby.
They're already saying it.
They're saying it. But my retort to that is, okay, if he's a sore loser and a crybaby, okay, fine. But gander me this one question. Why is he trying to refer to the Constitution and do it the right way? And doesn't he have the right, if he thinks there's foul play in play, so to speak, to challenge it? And if he's going to challenge it, then he needs to do it the right way. and isn't doing it the right way, trying to subscribe by what the founding fathers laid down for us, like I said earlier, how is he a dictator and a big fat mouth bully junta guy, with an AK-47 running around when in fact he's trying to subscribe to the Constitution? I keep going back to that.
No, but they're going to say he's a crybaby loser.
Okay, he's a crybaby. Fine. So I'm a crybaby because I believe in the Constitution? Okay, fine. I'm a crybaby then.
Mhm.
That's the logic we have now.
Just win, baby. That's the only thing that matters anymore. Just win.
Oh, just win, even if you are a liar and a cheater. Oh, my bad. How silly of me. What am I thinking?
Well, truth
What-
doesn't matter. Truth doesn't matter in this country anymore.
Well, there's people that say truth is relative, and that's a problem. That's a society issue and a cultural problem. I hear people say it all the time. Truth is relative. No, it's not.
Well, I really don't agree with that.
It's not.
Yeah.
If you've studied truth at all, and what fact is versus truth. Truth stands the test of time. It's empirical in nature. 2 + 2 is 4. End of story. If I walk off my coffee table 10 times out of 10, I'm going to fall because there's a thing called gravity. That's empirical.
Well,
That's a truth. That
Fraud
stands the test of time.
Fraud is fraud. Fraud is not truth.
Right.
Right? Somebody introduces illegal ballots. That's not truth.
Well, I don't want to get into it, but you can get rhetorical on that. I could be devil's advocate if I wanted to be an ass and get rhetorical on you. Well, what's the law, Dave, that's backing that? Where does that empirical truth and basis and roots come from to give you that law that you're calling fraud? That's how some lawyer would debate you rhetorically.
Here's something that I'm not sure people are talking about. Okay. If there's 2 million registered voters and you have 3 million votes,
How's that work?
Would that be a red flag? Are you telling me that all of a sudden you had 1 million people move into the county who weren't registered before?
Well, to your point, I had a discussion with somebody this afternoon that said the state of Georgia has a turnout anywhere between 89 and 115%.
And if you started polling like young people, like we talked, 2 of your kids are able to vote. They didn't vote. And a lot of these young people who are Bernie supporters, are you telling me that they actually were energized enough by Bernie? Here's another stupid thing. They had those rallies, fucking cars that honk their horns.
You got that horn honking good.
Is there anything gayer than that? Compare the Trump rallies to the Biden rallies. You have these idiots honking their horn. And so you're telling me that young people were energized enough to go vote for Biden? No way. Maybe 10%. Maybe. I'm being generous. I'd say 0. Maybe some of the older people voted against Trump because they didn't like he wasn't presidential, They buy these boomers, they buy into the pomp and circumstance rather than substance. They'd rather buy the lie as long as it looks good.
Hey, why not? Because they went from cocaine to Rogaine. Hooah!
Yeah.
You know where that came from.
Yeah, Carlin.
In the immortal words of Mr. Carlin.
Yeah, they should have a course called Carlinisms.
I'll tell you,
Probably
man.
learn more about U.S. history that way than what you learn in school.
Oh, 100%. He nailed so much stuff to the T.
I didn't vote for Trump, okay, but I support him here.
Yeah.
Because he is 100% right. This is a constitutional crisis right now. I mean, think about this. This really, it could be the fall of the republic.
There's potential for that. Yeah. And that's what scares me. Yeah. Depending on how we choose to react, that's what fighting in war is, right? It's a failure of diplomacy, right? And policy, right? And we are heading that way. I agree. I don't want to see it, but that's when fighting begins and persists because of failed policy and diplomacy, right? When the politicians fail and they never take the blame for anything, they always pass the buck. But if that does happen, it's on them.
No,
It's on them because
it's
they
on
failed.
us. It's on us.
It's
Because
on them and all of us.
we
Yeah,
allowed
all
it.
of us. Well, it's on us too. You're right, because we voted them in,
No, but how?
and they're a reflection of
We
us,
don't even
actually.
know our own constitution. We don't even know that there is anything wrong.
That's true. That's true. The bulk of us
We've
don't know
allowed this
that.
government to take over everything, and people love it.
Yeah,
It's
because
so
they're going to
much
be
safer.
safe and taken care of.
People are never going to understand the consequences of their actions until there are bodies in the street. I mean, mass bodies. I mean,
Okay, well,
blood flowing like
all
river.
right. Okay, enough. Will you please? Enough. Jesus.
Then they'll understand. All kidding aside, it's a terrifying topic because because as you alluded to, is our country is not about compromise and moving on. It's about win lose. It's not about win-win.
Zero-sum game. Yeah.
Stay alert.
Yeah,
And
stay alert.
I mean this seriously. I mean, if you start hearing what you think are fireworks, don't go investigate it. Get the hell out of there. Those who are like, oh, what is that? And then their head explodes from around. Take cover. Protect yourselves. I'm telling you, this could really erupt.